Okay, so you want to own a private island. You've seen the pictures. Pure white sand beaches. Crystal clear turquoise water. Complete privacy. No neighbors. Complete autonomy. You're picturing yourself as the owner of your own sovereign territory. A small island in the Caribbean costs $2 million to $10 million. A medium island costs $10 million to $50 million. A larger island with infrastructure costs $50 million to $200 million plus. The prestige is incomparable. You're literally buying isolation and status. You can develop the island however you want. You can build a compound. You can build a resort. You can do literally anything. The investment thesis is simple: buy an underdeveloped island, develop it, and enjoy it forever, or sell it at appreciation. It sounds like owning the ultimate real estate asset. It sounds like the business of private islands in 2015, when ultra-wealthy individuals were buying islands as status symbols and portfolio diversification plays, when development potential seemed unlimited, and when the scarcity of available islands seemed to ensure appreciation forever. That is exactly the comparison people are making right now. There are over 900 islands for sale globally at any given time. Private island sales have grown at 10% to 15% annually. The ultra-wealthy are diversifying into alternative real estate. Islands are marketed as blue-chip investments. Island brokers sell the dream aggressively. The scarcity narrative is pushed constantly. But here's what is actually happening on the ground, with private island ownership when the cameras are off and the actual financial statements are exposed. The reality of owning a private island is completely different from what the luxury marketing suggests. Some island owners are making reasonable returns. Many are breaking even at best. And a significant number are losing money every year while being trapped by illiquid assets. The gap between the few who profit and the vast majority who underperform comes down to a handful of things that almost nobody explains before you spend $20 million to $100 million on what appears to be an aspirational investment but is actually a capital trap disguised as a status symbol. By the end of this, you will know exactly where the money disappears to, what the hidden costs really are, and what separates the island owners who build sustainable returns from the ones who become prisoners to their own fantasy. What a private island actually sells: the illusion of ownership. People assume that owning a private island means you own land that generates value through appreciation and personal use. You do own land. But that's not what's really happening. What a private island actually sells is the fantasy of ultimate privacy and status. The customer, the billionaire, is buying psychological fulfillment, not rational investment returns. The island is purchased as a trophy asset. As proof of wealth. As a status symbol. But here's the brutal truth that nobody in the island marketing industry will acknowledge openly. Private islands are illiquid, location-dependent, high-cost liabilities that generate negative returns for the vast majority of owners. Islands are expensive to develop. Islands are expensive to access. Islands are expensive to maintain. Islands are expensive to improve. Everything on an island must be shipped. Everything that breaks must be repaired by specialists who must be flown in. Island development is one of the most expensive real estate undertakings in the world because of logistics and isolation. A beachfront home on a mainland coast that costs $5 million might cost $15 million to replicate on an island because of development and logistics costs. The secondary brutal truth is that island appreciation is not guaranteed. In fact, it's often negative. Islands are speculative assets. Their value depends entirely on narrative, the idea that scarce private islands will appreciate. But when the narrative breaks, when the ultra-wealthy realize islands are liabilities not assets, selling becomes catastrophically difficult. You have 900 islands for sale globally but only a handful of qualified buyers. The supply-demand imbalance is severe. Sellers are trapped. Values collapse. The full upfront investment, the initial capital trap. Everyone talks about island purchase price. Nobody talks about the total cost of ownership that appears after purchase. Island purchase price, $5 million to $100 million. A small 5 to 10 acre island costs $2 million to $10 million depending on location, development, and condition. A medium 20 to 50 acre island costs $10 million to $50 million. A larger 100-plus acre island costs $50 million to $500 million. Most purchased islands are raw land or partially developed. Cost $5 million to $100 million depending on target acquisition. Development and infrastructure, $5 million to $100 million. Raw islands need docks. They need water systems, wells or collection. They need power systems, generators, solar or undersea cables. They need sewage treatment. They need roads. They need buildings. Full island development from raw land costs $20 million to $100 million depending on amenity level. A luxury compound might be $50 million to $200 million. Cost $5 million to $100 million. Initial staffing and operations, $1 million to $5 million. First year island staff needs island housing. A caretaker. Maintenance staff. Security. Manager. Chefs if hosting. Initial recruitment, housing, and payroll, $1 million to $5 million annually. Cost, $1 million to $5 million. Permits, environmental, and regulatory, $500,000 to $5 million. Environmental impact studies. Building permits. Import permits. Customs compliance. Government fees. Environmental protection requirements. Cost, $500,000 to $5 million. Initial equipment and supplies, $500,000 to $2 million. Boats, generators, water systems, tools, building materials, initial inventory. Everything must be shipped. Cost, $500,000 to $2 million. Insurance and legal, $200,000 to $1 million. Initially comprehensive island insurance is expensive. Property, liability, environmental. Legal structures. Entity setup. Cost, $200,000 to $1 million. The real total investment, for a legitimate private island with basic development and infrastructure, the total capital investment is $15 million to $200 million depending on size, location, and amenity level. Most islands are owned outright by ultra-wealthy individuals or family offices. Few are financed. But the total cost is hidden across multiple categories. Where the money actually goes, the annual operating cost reality. Once you own the island and maintain it, the costs are relentless and largely invisible in marketing materials. Annual operating and maintenance, $500,000 to $3 million. Staffing, supplies, repairs, utilities. An island with just a caretaker and basic maintenance costs $500,000 to $1 million annually. A staffed island costs $2 million to $5 million annually. This includes salaries and housing for staff, $300,000 to $1.5 million. Equipment maintenance and repairs, $100,000 to $500,000. Fuel for generators and boats, $50,000 to $200,000. Water and sewage systems, $30,000 to $100,000. Internet, communications, supplies, $20,000 to $100,000. Insurance, $100,000 to $500,000 annually. Island property insurance is expensive because risk is high. Hurricanes, isolation, catastrophic failure of systems. Cost, $100,000 to $500,000 annually depending on size and location. Dock and boat maintenance, $100,000 to $500,000 annually. Docks need constant maintenance. Boats for island access are expensive to maintain and operate. Cost, $100,000 to $500,000 annually. Helicopter or boat access, $200,000 to $1 million annually. Regular access to mainland requires transportation. Helicopter charter or boat operation. Cost, $200,000 to $1 million annually if used frequently. Property taxes and government fees, $50,000 to $500,000 annually. Some jurisdictions impose substantial property taxes on island real estate. Others charge environmental fees. Cost varies wildly by location, $50,000 to $500,000 annually. Environmental compliance and monitoring, $50,000 to $200,000 annually. Coral reef protection, turtle nesting, environmental impact monitoring. Cost, $50,000 to $200,000 annually. The annual operating cost for a typical private island, a well-developed 50-acre private island in the Caribbean, tech staff salaries and housing, $800,000, equipment maintenance and repairs, $300,000, fuel and power systems, $150,000, water and sewage, $80,000, insurance, $300,000, dock and boat maintenance, $200,000, helicopter, boat access, for trips month, $400,000, property taxes, $150,000, environmental compliance, $100,000, communications, supplies, other, $200,000, total annual operating cost, $2,680,000. Annual operating cost, $2.68 million per year. This is for a modestly developed island with minimal staff. Larger islands with more development cost $5 million to $10 million annually. The return on capital calculation that destroys the narrative. An island purchased for $30 million that costs $2.68 million annually to operate and maintain. Text purchase price, $30 million, assumed annual operating cost, $2,680,000, 10-year cost of ownership, $26,800,000, total cost over 10 years, $56,800,000. Appreciation assumption, 2% annually island value after 10 years, $36.6 million gain on sale, $6.6 million total return, $6.6 million gain, $26.8 million operating cost equals $20.2 million, net loss effective return, minus 2.5% annualized loss. The island owner spent $56.8 million to generate $6.6 million in appreciation. That's a net loss of $20.2 million over 10 years or minus 2.5% annualized returns. They would have made substantially more money investing in treasury bonds. What island owners don't account for are the brutal realities. Appreciation is not guaranteed. Island values are speculative. They depend on narrative and luxury market cycles. During recessions, island values collapse. Ultra-wealthy discretionary spending contracts 30% to 50% during downturns. Island sales volumes drop 70% to 80%. Sellers are trapped holding depreciating assets. Development costs exceed projections by 50% to 100%. Island development is logistically complex. Cost overruns are endemic. A project budgeted at $20 million often costs $35 million to $40 million. Contractors charge premiums for island work. Weather delays add months and costs. Most island developers lose significant capital on development. Staff retention is impossible. Finding and keeping staff on a remote island is extremely difficult. Turnover is 30% to 50% annually. Training replacement staff costs $50,000 to $100,000 per person. Staff often leave because the isolation is unbearable despite high pay. Operating costs are driven by constant recruitment and training. Environmental regulations are tightening. Many jurisdictions are imposing stricter environmental protections on islands. Protected species, coral reef protection, carbon offset requirements. New regulations can require expensive upgrades and operating constraint. An island that was profitable becomes marginally profitable or unprofitable due to new regulatory requirements. Hurricane and climate risk. Islands are vulnerable to hurricanes, sea level rise, and climate change. Insurance costs are rising. Risk of catastrophic loss is real. The 2017 hurricane season destroyed several Caribbean islands. Owners lost hundreds of millions in uninsured damage. This risk is increasing. Liquidity trap. You can't sell an island quickly. There are maybe 5,000 ultra-wealthy individuals globally who might buy islands. At any given time, maybe 500 actively looking. If you need to sell, you're negotiating with a handful of potential buyers. You have no price discovery mechanism. The buyer has all negotiating power. Island owners have been forced to accept 30% to 50% discounts to liquidate positions. The island owner who actually makes money. You buy an island in a high-demand destination during a recession when prices are depressed. Purchase, $15 million. You develop it conservatively over 2 years, $5 million. You operate it at break-even by developing revenue streams, rent it for events, $200,000 annually, film productions, $300,000 annually, private resort bookings, $500,000 annually. Annual revenue, $1 million. Operating costs, $1 million. You're break-even operationally. During the next real estate cycle, the island appreciates to $35 million. You've made $15 million in appreciation on a $20 million invested capital while operating break-even for 5 to 8 years. This works. But it requires timing the real estate cycle perfectly, finding revenue opportunities, and patience through a decade of break-even operations. The bad scenario, the more common outcome: you buy an island for $40 million at peak market prices. You develop it for $30 million. Total invested, $70 million. You operate it for your personal use at $3 million annually. You hold it for 5 years. You want to sell. The real estate cycle has turned. Island values are depressed. Buyers are scarce. You need to sell quickly. You accept $35 million. You've lost $35 million in capital, $70 million invested, $35 million sale proceeds. Operating costs over 5 years, $15 million. Total loss, $50 million. You've destroyed $50 million in capital and spent $15 million in operating costs because you misread the real estate cycle and bought at peak prices. The hidden cost nobody discusses: psychological burden. Island ownership carries psychological costs that destroy quality of life. You're isolated. You're responsible for everything. Systems fail. Staff drama erupts. The fantasy of perfect privacy becomes a nightmare of isolation. Many island owners sell because they're miserable, not because the finances don't work. The psychological burden is the real cost that nobody quantifies. Conclusion: the actual economics of private island ownership. Owning a private island is an illiquid capital trap disguised as a luxury investment. Most island owners experience negative returns after accounting for operating costs. Appreciation is uncertain. Liquidity is minimal. Operating costs are high and escalating. The money in islands goes to developers, contractors, and real estate brokers who capture fees and markups. The money leaves from island owners through annual operating costs and eventual depreciation. The separation between island owners who generate acceptable returns and those who destroy capital comes down to one factor: timing the real estate cycle perfectly while finding revenue opportunities. Most owners do neither. They buy at peak prices. They operate at losses. They hold for years. They eventually sell at discounts. A private island purchased during a real estate trough, developed conservatively, operated at break-even through revenue generation, and sold during the next peak can generate acceptable returns. An island purchased at peak prices, developed lavishly, operated at annual losses, and sold during a trough will destroy capital. Here's what the ultra-wealthy don't acknowledge publicly about private islands. The island is not an investment. The island is a consumption good that you're paying for through annual operating costs. You're paying $2 million to $5 million annually for the privilege of owning a private island. That's the real cost. If you can't justify $2 million to $5 million annually for personal consumption, you can't afford a private island. The island that works financially is one you develop to generate revenue streams that offset operating costs. The island that fails financially is one you buy for personal prestige and operate at losses while hoping for appreciation. Most island owners fall into the second category. They've bought a status symbol. They've deluded themselves into thinking it's an investment. They're spending millions annually to maintain a fantasy. The economics are brutal. The returns are negative. The lifestyle satisfaction rarely justifies the financial cost. If you're considering buying a private island, understand that you're not making an investment. You're making a consumption purchase disguised as an investment. Budget $2 million to $5 million annually in operating costs. Assume zero appreciation. Assume it's illiquid and difficult to sell. If you can justify those realities, great. If you're banking on appreciation and passive